Welcome to the Daggers and Silk podcast. I'm your host, Rain Lovelace, and within this space, we will be learning to be strong and hardy like a dagger, but also soft and human like silk, cutting away societal scripts, softening ourselves from the armor and walls we build against ourselves and the world through philosophy and knowledge. Join us for this episode for another taste in your true authentic self, layer by layer. Welcome guys to today's episode. Today we are talking about self-love. So for those of you who know me personally, you know that I talk your ear off about self-love. If you ever say anything mean to yourself, you know who you're getting a berating from. So that's how serious I am about it. So I thought today would be a perfect chance to give everyone that berating. I am really going to be explaining to you how this correlates to the camel we talked about in our first episode. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch that. It has a lot of context for this video. But as a brief overview, we talk about the camel, lion, and the child, which is the Nietzschean philosophy that talks about the camel stage, which has to do with burdens and endurance, the lion stage, which has to do with empowerment and bravery, and the child stage that has to do with re-becoming who you truly are and who you are authentically and at your core. So I think this correlates a lot to the camel, since the basis of why we're taking on burdens and why we're enduring is really, and while this is an important stage in life, it is one that its purpose is to be surpassed, in my opinion, to be experienced and then surpassed. But the problem with it is that it can really hurt you in a lot of ways. So the solution to the so-called camel problem, I don't want to say problem because it's not necessarily a problem, it is a challenge to be surpassed, but it correlates to self-love very greatly, because self-love is the solution to going into our empowerment and bravery lion stage. So how do we do that? Like, what is self-love? Because it's not widely talked about, or as widely talked about as I would say is necessary for people and society as a whole, you know? So the definition of self-love is regard for one's own well-being and happiness, chiefly not considered a narcissistic quality. So chiefly not considered a narcissistic quality. Yet half of you here still think it's a narcissistic quality. So we're going to get into that and the misconceptions about it, because self-love is really, really, really not narcissistic, guys. So yeah, what does self-love look like? In my opinion, it really looks like getting to know yourself. I started out with self-love by doing my teenage girl thing, and I created a Pinterest board about myself and things that reminded me of myself, so I can get general vibe of myself. And then more in depth as I go, like maybe writing down, journaling, shadow work, all really, really good things. So that's what it looks like for me. It's very subjective, so it depends on who you are and what it looks like for you. So you kind of have to delve deep in that, but I think it does start with getting to know yourself as a baseline solution. So what are some mind shifts that we can sort of get into here, because it's definitely a misinterpreted topic. So I think the reason self-love is considered a narcissistic quality is because we think it gets in the way of other people, and is mean in a way and rude. I know that sounds childish, but it's like it is childish, you know? So it's how I'd like to shift this mentally for you is to look at yourself objectively. There's 7 billion, I've been hearing people say 8 billion lately. I need to check the statistics on that. But 7 to 8 billion people on this earth, and you try to give everyone all this love, all this appreciation, or at least you try to. It's not okay. It's perfectly okay if you don't do that all the time. But if you're looking at yourself, no offense, but if you're being a little self-centered and viewing yourself as not just another person objectively, I would say it's kind of goes over to the narcissistic point. So I hate to break it to you, but all you people who are not being self-loving are technically being a little narcissistic. And it's not like necessarily your fault, and it's not like full-on narcissism, right? But like it is in its own right not what we're expecting it to be. It's not being humble, it's not being kind. It's really hurting, and we went over this in the last episode. It's really hurting a human being on earth. It doesn't matter if you happen to be that human being. It really does not fucking matter. It matters that you are a human being and you are hurting that human being. You are hurting a soul in this world. Not okay. So, it's just so silly to me that people are like preach kindness, like be kind, but they're not kind to themselves. I'm like, can we please have our stories align? Like at the very least, that's all I need. I just need everything to align, and I need things to make sense. That's all I need in life. Please, people, for my sanity, please just be aligning. Yeah. So now that you understand that the idea of not loving yourself is completely stupid, let's talk about practices for that. So, self-loving practices are, I don't know, giving yourself grace. Giving yourself basically, or at least for me, everything you would give another person. If you are giving another person all your time, all your energy, giving people the benefit of the doubt, even though I'm not a big fan of the benefit of the doubt, you can do that to yourself too. So, yeah, just give back to yourself what you give to the world, because even if you're a terrible person, to some degree you give a lot to the world that you most likely don't give to yourself. Even if you are terrible to other people, you want to know why? It's probably because you don't love yourself. So, yeah, guys, this is a little lingering for me. But I want to talk about how this not only helps you in a selfish way, which is perfectly okay. Hey, it rhymes. It also helps shape your identity, and identity shapes success. So, whether or not you want to admit it, we all want success in life. It doesn't really matter what form it is. We want some degree of success in life. And again, that's okay. We're human. So, why does this have to do with self-love? Because self-love is a lot about identity building and having a strong profile of yourself, having a strong identity, building self-esteem, all those great things, even though self-love and self-esteem are two different things, which I want to get into in a different episode. But I was reading Atomic Habits recently, and it was talking about this guy's goal. A goal is a version of success, by the way. But it was talking about this guy's goal to stop smoking. And it was talking about you are like 10 times, I'm not sure about the statistic, but for dramatism's sake, we're going to say that it's like 10 times. You are 10 times more likely not to smoke if you say this. Instead of saying, if someone offers you a cigarette, saying, oh, sorry, I'm trying not to smoke. Yeah, that's like a little shaky. So if you are instead going to rephrase that to, I don't smoke. No, thank you, I don't smoke. It's an identity change. So, and that makes it you like 10 times more likely not to actually smoke because you see yourself as the type of person who doesn't smoke. It may not be true, but it's a mental thing. It's a mental trick, and it doesn't exactly matter the truthfulness of it because your subconscious mind hears the same thing. Okay, so if you want to do anything, really, you need to have the identity for it. Build a portfolio for yourself. Show myself I can do these things and these things equate to me. Because if you don't think you can do these things and you don't create a portfolio of instances and record them, track your progress, then you're not gonna make it there. And note that, track your progress. That's super important because we don't track our progress all the time. And as you do, it builds motivation. But that is besides what we're talking about. So I'm going to get back on track. I did hear a comment that was kind of along the lines of who decides what. And I think it was basically who decides what like goodness is and the general gist of that. I think I'll probably need to read that, but I want to kind of cater that and really address that based off of our topic today. So who decides how good you are? Because I've had like lots of debates about self-love and stuff, and one of the things that comes up a lot is like, well, do you really deserve love if you're not a good person? Well, first of all, you're probably not a good person because you don't have enough love in your life. Because yeah, it's just kind of a no-brainer for me. I don't know. I feel like that I just can't explain that. Um but it also is like that then comes up the question just like, okay, well, who decides whether or not you're deserving of love? Who decides if you're good enough for love? Well, yourself. So, like, who in their right mind would say, let's pick like a crazy example. Like, it's like going to, I don't know, maybe a atomic bomb went off and you wanted to know who did it. And you go to ask a little 4-year-old. You don't ask the 4-year-old, and you're a rocket science fan, and you know all these things about like about atomic bombs theoretically, and but are you gonna go to like a 4-year-old or even like a 60-year-old? Like, because you don't know the information they possess. So it's always good to go to different people for advice and like absorb that into your brain, but not to the point where you're making other people make your decisions for you, because this whole podcast is about breaking societal norms and what we've been fed all our life. And if you don't have your own mind and you don't think with your own mind, you're not gonna have a you're just giving everyone power. You're just taking away all your power and giving it to people who don't have anyone's best interest in mind. So just please don't do that. Look to yourself. Get advice from other people. My measure of goodness personally, and this is in my brain, so just take this as advice, is that goodness is 90% trying, and and that doesn't mean that you get it right 90% of the time. That means you try 90% of the time. Or 95, I don't know. I think that's what I came up with. Because I'm just like, you can't equate goodness to perfection. So let's say like 95% of the time I try my hardest to do things. And then like there's that 5% where I'm burnt out and I don't want to do things. So it's like, I don't know. It seems so silly to me that people define goodness and your self by what other people think. It doesn't make sense. You've grown up with yourself, you've lived with yourself for your whole life. Who do you think would know you the best? Look for advice from different people. That makes sense. Got it. But look to yourself too, please. Okay, so why does society crave self-hatred? So I think this is interesting. Is people who don't have your best interests in mind are actually feeding off of your self-hatred, because that keeps you in bondage, that keeps you in their cage that they just made you think it's so big that you think you can fly, but it's a cage, guys. So I just want to get that out of the way. Like, society really does feed off self-hatred, and people that don't have anyone's best interests in mind feed off self-hatred. So if you don't even agree with the whole idea of the whole idea about self-love, then at the very least take it as an act of rebellion to not be put in that cage, even if you don't agree with it, because they feed off of your self-hatred. Society and people that don't have your best interests feed off of that. So at the very least, just say no to that. That's all you need to do. And just start from there, you know? Like, politically, for me, one side, like, we've got the left side, we got the right side. For me, politically, I, like, absolutely refuse to pick a political party. Not because I think one doesn't make sense over the other, or at least certain concepts, right? But what's behind it. If you look at it objectively, it's really the whole idea of the political parties is to separate people, separate ideologies, separate and eventually get people to fight over themselves. When we are striving for our highest potential and our highest vibration, which is love and goodness. And it's so silly to me that we don't see that. And so I don't pick a political party because of the politics within it. I pick my own. And my own is, I don't pick a political party because it's all meant to tear us apart. So please do not tear yourself away from yourself, because that's what they want. Like, at the very least, just don't choose to self-hatred. It doesn't have to be self-love if you don't want it to be, even though you deserve it just as much as any other individual does. At least have self-respect, you know? Okay, so that brings us on to our next part, which is misconceptions and scripts that reinforce what society is telling us. So, rejection sensitivity. Most of the time, we are scared of self-love because we don't want to be rejected. If someone asks you to go to a party, if someone asks you to go for a coffee date and you don't want to go, whether that's because you don't want to go on the coffee date because you don't like the guy or girl, or you just aren't feeling like it that day, you're afraid of being rejected. And it has really nothing to do with, it really has nothing to do with yourself and, like, actually what you want to do. It's because you're scared. So I hate to break it to you, but if you believe in bravery, act on it. If you believe in not being afraid of things, act on it, because you're doing it every day. So, self-love is an act of bravery. Yeah, so rejection sensitivity and people-pleasing too, guys. I hate to break it to you, and I think I went over this in the last episode just a little bit. People-pleasing is, this is something I am hesitant to say, because it doesn't change how good of a person you are because it's all about trauma and past experiences and societal shaping. But as a people pleaser, you are manipulating someone's perception of you. So, yeah, you're manipulating people, by the way. I know it sounds like all like you're the victim and stuff. No, you're not the victim. You're manipulating people. Yeah. So, stop doing that, please. Um, yeah, and same with self-sacrificing. It's just like, can we please just stop with that? Because again, you're a good person, and and people seem to say that if you're self-sacrificing, that means you're a good person, or vice versa. If you don't self-sacrifice, you're a bad person. You're not. You're just helping a soul. And I like to describe it this way: is you're a cup of water, and you're being poured in all this love and attention to yourself. What you give, if in an ideal world, if everyone had a cup and they filled it all the way to the top, and then they gave out what like overflowed to other people, everyone would be happy because everyone had a full cup or even more. So like, why can't we just do that? No one's lacking anything. So equality, people. I also want, as this podcast suggests, get into a little philosophy here. So, for those of our Bible believers, I want to get into how your religion, even though um, they have great principles and stuff about self-sacrificial stuff and being humble. Well, those are good. I think they're misconstrued. Your like biggest principle is the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So, do you see the flaw there? If you are not doing unto yourself well, how can you really do unto others well? You, it, it's just, if you're not giving yourself what you need as a person, it really, you're not, it's not authentic love you're giving to other people. You're giving them love and appreciation out of fear of rejection and all these sort of things. So really, once you start loving yourself, then it's like you get filled up your cup, and then everything that comes outward is true water and not like, I don't know, cocaine or something. um okay, so what about philosophers? Because I think that the Bible is very philosophical. It is one of the most philosophical books ever, especially with the Jesus parts in it. Jesus was like chef's kiss philosopher, man. So let's go to Aristotle now. So don't judge me if I pronounce this wrong. I have not read on any of these philosophers. This is just what I know. So Aristotle talks about the Nicomachean ethics, and it basically talks about how a good person should be their own best friend. You can help others better if you help yourself, like I was saying before. And other people say this too. So, like, other philosophers, like Marcus Aurelius, talk about this, Epicurus, and, like, just having your own back and stuff. And Augustine talked about this too, like treating yourself as God's child. And the way I like to look at that is like treating yourself as a child, because at our core, we are children. And this goes into the camel lion child again. At our core, we are children. We have just been given we're like a bowl of, like when you go gold panning, and there's little bits of gold inside the gold pan, but like society gave you some rocks, your community gave you some dirt, I don't know, and the world gave you a couple leaves. So you're like panning that out of there, because what you truly are, you're looking for the gold. What you truly are is the gold, and you're just trying to pan all that out and treat yourself as you truly are, a child. because childs are vulnerable and just so pure and beautiful, and you should treat yourself like that, because who you truly are isn't what they've given you. I saw this quote once that was like talking about how, I don't remember who wrote it, was talking about how the talking about how grass isn't any less important than what it's to become, wheat. And just because it isn't it yet doesn't discount its quality. If you have a field of grass, it's like not wheat, eatable wheat yet, are you gonna go bulldoze it? No, because it has the potential to become wheat. So yeah, guys, please don't bulldoze your grass, your mental, emotional, physical grass, please. Um, Also, Thomas Aquinas thought that self-love was good spiritual hygiene, which I agree, because I think love is the highest vibration, and um the higher your vibration is, the better your spiritual hygiene. That brings us to the end. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I hope it impacted you. If it did, please remember to follow, comment, and share. It really helps support the podcast so I can continue to make helpful content. Again, thank you, and make sure to join me next Saturday for another episode. Bye, guys.